We turn our attention now to politics as former Lagos governor and national leader of the ruling All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, has been reacting to the leadership crisis rocking the party. Mr. Tinubu describes the clamor to oust the party's national chairman, Mr. Adams Oshomole, as a 2023 virus. He believes those behind the plot to remove Mr. Oshomole are pursuing personal 2023 ambitions. The former Lagos State governor went further to say that those afflicted with the virus do a grave disservice to President Buhari and his administration, as he believes these actions distract the nation's #1 citizen from the issues of governance. He said in a statement today, the plotters launched their attacks solely because they perceive the chairman as an obstacle to their 2023 ambitions. People went to court knowing full well the party constitution prohibits such action because these people had not yet exhausted all internal disciplinary procedures. We even had a national deputy secretary improperly call for a NEC meeting on the basis that he believed himself the acting national chairman. Clearly, this man would not have summoned the temerity to make such a move had he not been instigated by powerful individuals who he thought would reward or at least protect him from committing the wrongful act. The standards of education in the country have fallen so far and so fast. It requires drastic action to halt the slide. That's according to retired Professor of History, Banji Akintoye. With the use of statistics and history, Professor Akintoye told Channels Television's Ladi Akeredoluale on our current affairs program, Newsnight, that a commission to identify what to do and how to go about it is now essential.
For instance, UNESCO says for an educational system in a country to be viable, the country needs to be spending something like 25 or more of its GDP on education. There were times when Chief Awolowo, there were years when Chief Awolowo, as Premier of the Western region, spent 42% of the GDP of the Western region on education. Today, the highest we find in Nigeria is 8%. At some point, until a few years ago, it fell down to 6%. You cannot sustain education with 6% or 7% or 8%. We used to be very proud of our education in the 1950s, the 1960s. You are asking me a question that can make me emotional because the educational system has virtually collapsed in Nigeria. Decline. Poverty. Loss of excellence. That's what I see everywhere. In primary schools, in secondary schools, in teacher training colleges, universities, especially in the universities, which is where I know most. It's shocking what is happening to our universities. We need to identify the sources of the weakness, of the decline, and then proposing the solutions that will lead to a change.
You can watch the full interview with Professor Akintoye on Newsnight. It airs tomorrow, Monday, March 16th, 2020 at 9 p.m. right here on Channels Television. Since the outbreak of the novel coronavirus or COVID-19, global investments in bonds, stocks and currencies have been negatively affected. This week, the value of the naira relative to the dollar was volatile at the Bureau de Change. The Central Bank of Nigeria has warned against currency speculation. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele says Nigeria's external reserves remain strong to finance more than 8 months of imports. But some investors are still worried at the rate of decline of the foreign reserves. All eyes now turn to what the CBN will do next. To discuss the concerns of the decline in foreign reserves is Babajide Ogusowo, Channels Television's data analyst. Thank you for showing up today.
Good evening.
I mean, nothing freaks Nigerians out the most than a falling dollar, right?
Yes, the falling dollar, but we've also seen the explosion today. And I'd like to share a quick story about you between the difference between responsibility and a problem. You know, Marachi, if you drive your car into a gas station, it's not your responsibility to get down and fill the gas tank of the person in front of you. But if you're on the bridge and the man runs out of fuel, it becomes your problem. It might not be your responsibility.
I could help.
When Nigeria's government is signing peace treaties, but if a war breaks out, it becomes your problem. So it might not be your responsibility if there's a problem of infrastructure at Abuliado, but if the pipeline blows up, it becomes your problem if you're living in Festac. Where am I going with all of this? It might not be the CBN's responsibility to grow the external reserves, but it has become its problem. Here's what I mean. There are three things that are necessary to stop the bleeding of our foreign reserves. The first is we need to ensure that we change our balance of trade. What do I mean? Last year, our balance of trade was only 2 trillion naira. In 2017, it was 4 trillion naira. The second thing is, if you look at our foreign direct investment, the NBS says last year only $923 billion was invested into the country. That seems to be a lot of money. But here's the fact. That is the lowest foreign direct investment in a decade. Wow. And the final thing is we need to look at our oil exports. Our oil exports last year the performance of our oil exports was worse than it was in 2018. And these are the three things that are leading to fears about the stability of the naira.
So the foreign reserves is at $36 billion, and the CBN says we do have enough dollars to meet demand. Does that mean that there is no risk of devaluation?
You know, here's when I would like us to look at the chart of the week, because that tells us exactly what is going on. And if we look at the chart of the week, here's what you find out. In March 2018, our foreign reserves was $47 billion. March 2018. Last year, as at March, it had declined by only $2 billion from $47 billion to $45 billion. Right now, a year after, it has moved from $45 billion to $36 billion, a decline of $9 billion. So, Amarachi, here's the right question Nigerians are asking. When was the last time external reserves declined by as much as $9 billion? And what happened? And the evidence we have today shows that between June 2014 and May 2015, external reserves declined by about that same amount, $9 billion. And what happened to the currency? It moved from 168 naira to 216 naira, a decline of 30%. And that is why investors are worried that, yes, today at $36 billion, yes, the CBN is right that it has enough money to finance 8 months of import cover. But don't forget, a dozen years ago, as at March 2008, the CBN had enough foreign reserves to finance 20 months of import cover. And I know you are itching to ask, so what should the CBN do?
Babajide, you always, when talking to you, there are always more questions than there are answers. And this is one of those days. Thanks again.
The pleasure is always mine.